This Saturday, the New Haven Free Public Library and Southern Connecticut State University's H.C. Buley Library are hosting a community program featuring the people, places, history, faith, and cultures of Muslims in the United States and around the world. To launch the discussion, the award-winning documentary film Prince Among Slaves, the cultural legacy of enslaved Africans will be shown. Now, this is a true story of an African Muslim prince who was captured and sold into slavery in Mississippi. He became a national celebrity after regaining his freedom 40 years later. Joining us now are Imam Hassaam and Shirley Cavanaugh, who's a librarian over at Southern Connecticut State. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Say first, tell us a little bit about the movie, what people will see.
Yes, what people will see in the movie is Abdul Rahman, who was a former prince who was taken into slavery from West Africa. He was from a very prominent and noble family, part of one of the great Islamic empires actually in West Africa, which was the Empire of Songhai and Timbuktu. And he was captured and he was brought here to the United States. And by the grace of God, he was able to gain his freedom after 40 years of captivity. But his nobility and his strength enabled him to carry on, to keep his faith, to keep his way of life throughout that captivity.
And I suppose we're going to have to see the movie to see exactly how he did that.
Absolutely, yes. It's very nice. The whole movie is very good.
All right. Shirley, tell us about some of the lessons we could learn from this character.
Well, Abdul was a very educated, prominent, really dignified man. And when he was sold into slavery, he came into the household of Mr. Foster, who was a cotton and tobacco plantation owner. And immediately, Foster realized that Abdul had something special. And he recognized the fact that he was intelligent, he had respect of the other slaves. So what he did is he made him the overseer of the whole plantation. Now that was good and bad in both respects, because good in the sense that he was able to probably live a better life, but bad in the sense that he became indispensable to Mr. Foster. So Foster would never, ever, for 40 years, give him his freedom.
Got it. Okay. Now, Saif, let me ask you why his story is so significant to understanding Muslim culture.
Well, I think one of the things we have to understand is that it plays a great part, of American history for the most part. That this is an integral part of our society. Slaves were brought over here in the Americas, and I think one of the things that Abdul Rahman portrays is that perseverance, that patience that he was able to endure throughout those 40 years. And this is part of our culture. One of the things that God tells us in the Quran, to seek, God's help with patience, perseverance, and prayer. And I think this is one of the things that he exemplified for us as Muslims and our culture. That this was a great part of what he did, his dignity, his nobility, all these things kind of, as Shirley was saying, kind of reflected what he did, even as a slave, coming from a prince to being a slave, and it kind of reflected that.
Sure. Let me ask you this. How, in early American history, how Muslim was portrayed to how it is today?
I think the difference, of course, now that the Muslims, or the early Muslims, weren't able to maintain their faith. Because of slavery, they were forced to accept another culture, another identity. And one of the differences now that we are able, for myself, I accepted Islam about 33 years ago out of my own free will. And I'm able to practice my faith and continue that faith in the United States of America, whereas they weren't given that opportunity. And I think that's the big difference between them and us.
Sure. Shirley, just tell us a little bit about the event coming up this weekend. We're going to watch the movie, and then what's going to happen?
Right. Well, it's going to be at the New Haven Free Public Library this Saturday, May 18th at 2 p.m. And then after the movie, we're going to have a discussion with the Imam about cultural understanding, about some of the lessons that we can learn from this movie. So even though you may not be Muslim, you may not really kind of identify with a black man who is in slavery, I think you can identify with a person who loved his family, who wanted to free his children, who wanted to return to his country and to his culture.
Very good. All right. Well, all the information is up there on the screen. Again, the event is this Saturday at 2 o'clock at the New Haven Free Public Library. Thank you both for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up next, Neil and Billy share a spring appetizer recipe that's both spicy and refreshing. When style returns, we'll be right back.